Peas and beans are such great crops to grow because they're very beginner friendly and they are adaptable to most soil conditions as well, and they're just so fun to grow. They're really quick to harvest, and I mean there's nothing better than just snacking on them straight from the pod on a warm summer's day in your garden. And they take up such relatively little space. You know, you can grow them up walls, up trellises, up frames. Vertical crops are always great for saving space in your gardens. And there are so many ways that you can start your peas. You could start them in guttering, individual pots. You can sow them straight into the ground if mice aren't going to be too much of a problem for you. But for me, I've chosen to grow mine in a cell tray to start with, which is how they've got so big in my polytunnel, and they are definitely in need of planting out today. I'm going to use a slightly different method of supporting them than I usually would, which is really exciting because it's inside those packages. And I can't wait to share with you what they look like because I haven't had a peek or anything just yet. So really keen to get these in the ground. But what varieties have I got here? So this year, the pea that I'm growing is one that I've grown a few years ago and fell in love with, and then I kind of didn't get hold of the seed, so I haven't grown it for a few years, and it's a pea called homegrown, and it's an heirloom Swedish type of pea, and it's really unusual and really special if you like ornamental plants, you know, food that you can eat that also looks really good in your garden. And that's because the homegrown pea has a pink and ivory flower, and it grows in a really unusual way. So the flowers tend to be at the top of the plant rather than all the way up like you get with some pea varieties. And the flowers sort of create this sort of crown shape. They grow in like a circle off the main stem, and this beautiful pink and ivory colour. They're just really unusual and eye-catching, and the peas taste delicious as well. They are a small to medium-sized pea that you can actually eat as a mange too, you know, before the peas have swollen. You can just eat them as a flat little pea, or you can wait for them to mature and harvest the peas from inside the pod. So I really love that it's a very flexible, versatile pea. It also doesn't get too big. It gets to about 1.2 to 1.5 meters, which means you don't have to get enormous structures to support them. And because they're mostly crop on the top of the plant, you don't have to go hunting for them. You know, sometimes, although it can be fun to try and find your peas, it can be a mission to determine what's foliage and also what's a pea. But with it being mostly at the top, you're not really going to miss any. It just makes them a lot more accessible as well when you can just pluck them straight off without having to bend down. I know you're probably going to ask, I got my pea seeds from a company called Real Seeds. They specialise in heirloom varieties that are open pollinated, and they are a great company to support, so I don't mind giving them a shout out because they have some fantastic varieties. This is not sponsored, by the way, in any form. I just really like what they do, and the homegrown pea. So I've decided that this year my peas and my beans are going to run along this stretch here. I'll have some supports with various other crops growing in between them, but they're going to make a bit of an ornamental feature along the plots. They're going to give me some height in the form of these structures. Now, obviously you can support your peas and your beans in various different ways. In the past, I've always used pea sticks, which is just a way of saying sticks, nice straight sticks, quite often hazel because I've got that growing, and it grows in nice straight forms that you can harvest in the winter, cut away, dry out a little bit, and then use them for your crops in the summer months. But I'm starting to realise that I want something a bit more permanent so that I can have a bit more height even throughout the winter when there's nothing on them, and something that's going to save me time, because at this time of the year I don't have any sticks for one thing, but I don't want to be faffing with tying it all the time, and I've just decided to spend a bit of money to get these supports here, and that's what my packages are, if you couldn't work it out from my Instagram teaser. And these are actually handmade, and you might already know a bit about the person who's made them, because if you follow a lot of YouTube videos of other allotment gardeners and growers and social media accounts, then you might know Katie, who previously went under the name Lavender and Leeks, and it's now the Orchard Garden. She's relocated to Wales, and the business of theirs is selling antiques and handmade plant supports. And I've been a big fan of Katie for a long time, ever since she had the original allotment with the purple potting shed. You know, I think we probably both took on our allotments around a similar sort of time. I think she might have got hers a bit before me, but it was just so great to have another young woman to aspire to, because back then, 10 years ago, there weren't many female allotment gardeners. It was still a bit of a stereotypical older man type hobby. But here we are. I've got some plant supports, so let's get them unpackaged, and keep watching because I've got a discount code for you if you want to use it on the Orchard Garden shop, and so you can support Katie and her family with what they do. All right, let's get these unpackaged because I'm dying to see what's in them, because I've had them a few days now and I have not had any sneak peeks. So here they are. They are obelisk or wigwam style support, and I've got 2 in here. Ugh. Oh my gosh. Oh, these are so heavy to move to and from the car because they are proper solid metal. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy with these. They look fantastic. Ugh. Let's get one out of the other one. Ta-da! How about that? So they're about 4 foot, I think. My peas will get to about height. So it's just a case of sinking them into the ground a little bit. But what I love about these is that in time, the metal is going to slowly rust and oxidize and get that really gorgeous burnt copper orange color that I absolutely love. You might have seen my carrot bed that I painted with the help of some men that worked at a car shop to try and recreate that look. I mean, it kind of passes off as it, but this is going to be the real deal, and you can already see in some areas it's got that orange colour coming through already. So these are going to weather absolutely beautifully and last. And I've got another package to undo as well, just over there, which will be for the beans, but I'm thinking I'm going to have 2, and it's going to go big one, small one, big one. You may have been wondering on Instagram what on earth this was, so now you might have a bit more of a clue. Some hoops so I can make my extra tall supports for my beans, because the beans are going to grow about 2 meters in height, whereas the peas will stick with the smaller ones. So we've got 2 for beans and 2 for peas, although I may end up putting cucumbers on one of the smaller ones. Haven't quite decided yet. Right, I'm going to get these set up, and I'll see you in a minute. So we've got the chain linked area at the top, and I've realised it's just a case of spreading them about as far as they'll go and then putting the hoop over. Obviously you do want to make sure that your ground's nice and soft before you do this, because if it's already rock hard you might have trouble pushing them in, but making sure he matches the other side. Hang on, I've got to make sure this lines up, because if it's not in a straight line it's going to annoy me. Okay, that one was a lot quicker to put up. Now I know how to do it. I'm just going to push each leg in a few inches, and that is already really sturdy. Is it straight? I can't tell from here. I'm going to pop the hoops on, big one first. Hoopla! Oh, this is amazing. And just so well made as well. You can tell this is going to last me a lifetime, hopefully. Is that about the same height? I think we are roughly there. That leg needs to come out a bit more. I'll just use my foot this time. Kick it a bit. And there we are. And that's really sturdy. I don't think that's going to budge anywhere. Yeah, really happy with that. And then these, you just have to push into the ground a little bit because they're already made up, which is brilliant. Oh, I'm so excited to see these covered in peas and flowers and beans. Oh my gosh. So yes, if you like what you see and you want to support Katie and her business at the Orchard Garden Antiques, then use the offer code that I'll put down below. You can get 10% off your order. I'm not getting anything out of this, just to let you know. I just really feel that we need to support each other and big up independent businesses and other women, and yeah, just go buy some antiques and support her because she's great. And already it's given me like instant height and, you know, a bit of structure on the plot, because sometimes I find if you don't have climbing crops, the plot can just look really flat and it's not that, what's the word, aesthetic, I suppose. You need a little bit of structure in a garden, and obviously what I do here is all about making it look good. I grow a lot of flowers as well as edibles, so yeah, I'm really pleased with how this is looking already. All right, now it's time to plant them out. And as I mentioned earlier, I've grown mine in one of these cell trays. And with peas and beans, I tend to put 2 seeds per cell. And when you're spacing them out in your planting, you want to give them about 2 or 3 inches apart. You really can cram them in together, so don't worry about over filling them and planting them too tightly. And also a quick tip for you, if you're using these cells, you want to choose ones with the deepest volume possible, because peas and beans love to have really deep roots, similar to sweet corn, and these have got a nice long depth. And a quick tip, if you're frustrated trying to get these out, it's a good idea to leave them until they dry out just a little bit, because you can really get them out much easier that way. If they're wet, they're really difficult to get out. But look at that for a bean. A pea even. So yeah, it's just a case of planting these out and getting them in. So what pea variety are you growing this year? In the past I've grown some that are really, really tall. There's a variety called telegraph or telephone pole, and they grew incredibly tall, probably about 2 meters. You can tell I still haven't managed to find my trowel. There's always one tool, don't you find, that's like lost, and then you find it like months later when you don't really need it anymore because the season's gone. In terms of fertilizing and feeding your peas, as long as you've got good soil, there's not really a great deal you really need to do, because you know, these already fix a lot of nitrogen into the soil. Their roots do that. So you don't really need to be applying any nitrogen, otherwise you'll just get more leafy growth and no peas. Yeah, you just water them well, make sure you've got good soil. If you do have quite poor soil, maybe put a bit of compost, well rotted manure maybe, but I really wouldn't go overkill on feeding them. They even grow well in quite sandy soil. Yeah, they don't want to be drowned in water. But peas actually do like to have their roots in the shade. I find if you don't plant them deep enough, they get stressed quite quickly because they get baked by the sun. So it's a good idea to, you know, water them in well and then perhaps mulch them. But if they grow their roots in the shade, then I find they're a lot happier. But you can see I've got 2 each of each plant in here, and they've grown really, really well. So hats off to real seeds. I mean, look at the roots on this. Those are some ridiculous roots. You can see what I mean about them growing very deep, and they're definitely ready to be planted out. So in terms of the spacing along this framework, I guess I'm just making a bit of a trench around the outside, and they don't necessarily need to go up these canes, unlike beans, because peas and beans grow in slightly different ways. So whereas beans will twist and turn and twine their way around a vertical stick, a bit like a climbing vine, peas on the other hand have little tendrils with little tiny hands, if you like, that grab onto things as they go to help them up. So it's actually important to give peas a little bit of a horizontal as they go, so they can cling on as they go. So what I might do is put a little bit of string just around the outside as we go, just to give them that little helping hand. So if your soil is poor, you could put some compost into the planting hole as you plant them, but I mulch my soil most years and it's in very good health. It's quite black and rich as it is, so these guys are going to be absolutely fine. As it works out, I've actually grown exactly the right amount of peas for each trellis, which is quite amazing, to be honest. I think I've got about 25 plants on each frame. And I've just got 2 left to put in. And then we're done on the peas. What's your favourite way of enjoying peas? I mean, I honestly don't think many of them make it home, because when you grow peas and they're just irresistible to pluck off straight from the plant and eat it there and then, raw, because it just tastes so fresh and delicious. So now all we need to do is water them in really well, but also give them some protection, because there are a number of critters that love peas, slugs being one of them, but because we've got such big plants, hopefully it's not going to wipe them out. That's more of a problem if you sow directly in the ground and you get little stubs left behind because they've been along and eaten them. But pigeons love the foliage of fresh peas. So what I do is wrap some mesh netting around the outside, as we're going to do in just a minute. But first things first, I'm going to give them a nice drink to settle them in. As you'll notice, I've taken off the rose head because I just want to give them a really good drench. They like to have nice, cool, hydrated roots that go nice and deep. And also it's a little bit windy today, which means they're going to be losing more water as the wind strips it out of the leaves. So I just want to keep them nice and hydrated and settle them into their new home on their new frame. Oh, it's going to look beautiful when these flower. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Right, let's get them protected from the pigeons. Now, I know it doesn't look attractive, but needs must if you want a crop. And I've got this fine mesh netting because I don't like to use the traditional bird netting, because I think birds can get stuck in it, and lots of animals can, to be honest. You could also use your spade to push it into the ground. So essentially, that's all you need to do. And I find you don't have to keep this on forever. Obviously I want to enjoy that beautiful frame, but once the foliage is so young and tender and delicious and irresistible, we just want to keep it covered like that. And I'll see how they go with those tendrils, because they might actually just cling on to this, but I might add a bit of string. We will see. String's always good, just to give them a little bit of a helping hand. So yeah, that's the peas in. Now it's time for the beans. Now, as for the beans, it's pretty much the same process. Digging a nice deep hole and popping them in. But unlike the peas, I'm actually going to stick to just planting these ones at the canes, because they need this cane to climb up and all the way up to the top. But we'll see how many beans I have left at the end. Now, unlike peas that you can actually sow quite early on when, you know, the temperatures are still quite cool, they prefer to germinate in a bit of warmth, but they can grow in quite cool weather. They don't want to be frozen, that would kill them, but they don't mind low temperatures, whereas beans are the opposite, and they need to be really warm. And it's quite common as a beginner gardener to make the mistake of sowing them too early, planting them out too early, and they're really tender, so it's quite easy for these to sulk in the soil, or for the foliage to blacken if you do have a late frost, you know, at the end of April, beginning of May. It does happen, and it can really catch you out if you're not on guard. So I prefer to sow them much later, plant them much later, because they're such a quick crop to grow. They always seem to catch up. And it looks like I'm gonna have 2 spare beans, and I could plant them in the gaps, but what I think I'm gonna do is just keep them as reserves just in case a slug comes along and eats them. It's always good to have a few gap fillers in your polytunnel just in case. And that is the last one in the ground, which means it's time to give him another drink and admire all the progress that I've made today. Now, I haven't actually hardened off these plants, which is a process where you get them used to the outside conditions, such as wind and cooler nighttime temperatures. Obviously, these have spent all their life so far inside my polytunnel, which is nice and warm and protected from the wind that we're having quite a bit of today. So they may sulk a little bit because I haven't hardened them off. And if you want to harden them off before you plant them out, it's just a case of moving them outside for a few hours a day and then bringing them back before nighttime, and doing that for about a week or 2. I'm just not very good at it, so they've got to fend for themselves. Now, I've wrapped that one around, but you don't need to because they will vine their own way, but I just find it helps to bring them close to it so they know which one is theirs and which one to climb, and before you know it they'll be reaching all the way up to the top. Now, before I cover this pea frame with some mesh, I'm just going to do that little string all the way around, just to help keep them up and give them something to hold on to as they climb. Obviously I can go quite a bit higher now because of that bar in the middle. Ooh, I'm getting dizzy. And I do find that once they get most of the way up, they'll then start to just cling onto each other until they reach the top. But yes, I'm happy that will just give them a little bit more to cling onto that they might need to grow up, and then we can just weave them in and out so that they grow nice and tall and don't sort of fall into the middle if they don't have the support. But yeah, they should quite easily find their own way now. Oh, this gets me so excited. It's the first crop I've planted out this season. That's crazy, other than the potatoes, obviously, and my strawberries. Yeah, really excited for this. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope your peas are growing well. Do check out that code and also Katie's shop at the Orchard Garden Antiques if you're interested in seeing what they make, because they really do have some really beautiful stuff. I'll leave the links down below on where you can find her. But yes, thank you for watching. I will keep you posted on their progress, especially when these peas flower, because they are just so beautiful. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.